Hello students, we're on fractions 25. This is Mrs. Carla. We're doing dividing fractions by whole numbers. First division of fractions section. Now we're going to talk about the whys behind division of fractions for a little bit. And we're also going to talk about something called reciprocals. Reciprocals have a very definite definition in mathematics. Now, a lot of times if you ask somebody what the reciprocal is, they will say, oh, it's just the flip over of a number. And that's true. We just flip a number over and we get the reciprocal. But this is the formal definition of a reciprocal. Any number times its reciprocal will always equal 1. Okay, so remember that 3 is the same thing as 3 over 1, isn't it? So 3 over 1 times 1 over 3, notice what happens. Can I cancel the 3 on the top and the 3 on the bottom to end up with 1 over 1, which is 1. Could have been 3 over 3, it's still 1, okay? Look at this one. Okay, 1/5 times 5, and remember 5 can be 5 over 1. So now when I multiply those together, I get 5 over 5. If I simplified, I'd get 1 over 1, which is 1. So anytime we take a number and we stick a 1 under it, if it's a whole number, and we flip it over, that is its reciprocal. And a number times its reciprocal will always equal 1. So here I have 6, and its reciprocal times 6 would be 1. So to see the reciprocal easily, if we take the 6 and turn it into a 6 over 1, then we have 2 parts, and it's easier to see what happens when we flip them over. And we would flip them over to get 1 over 6. The old denominator becomes the numerator. The old numerator becomes the denominator. And when I multiply, I get 6 over 6, which is 1. Or I could cancel. Okay? Now, we're going to come back to this in just a minute. But let's talk about this. This is the reason why this works. Okay? So let's just take, this is a little theory exercise here. I'll bring you over here a little bit. A little theory exercise. Notice I have a fraction divided by a fraction, okay? Now, if I want to get this in a different form, I have to multiply by some form of 1. Now, because we know how reciprocals work, I'm going to multiply by 1 in the form of the reciprocal of the denominator. The reciprocal of this denominator is just the flip of it, okay? So the reciprocal of this one is d over c, but I don't want to change anything. So I'm going to multiply by 1 in the form of the reciprocal of the denominator. So I'm going to multiply by d over c divided by d over c, which is just 1. Any number divided by itself is 1. Now look at the cool thing that happens here. When I look just at this denominator here, I've got CD over DC, or I can cancel all of those out, right? Multiplying across, and I end up with 1. And the numerator now becomes, it doesn't simplify, does it? A over B times D over C. Okay, divided by 1. Well, since I'm dividing by 1, I can just get rid of that altogether. And this is the mathematical reason why we flip and multiply. All the time we'll say division is multiplication by the reciprocal. And this is the reason why. We started out with A over B divided by C over D. We multiplied by 1 in the form of the reciprocal. That caused all of this to cancel out, and we were left with A over B times D over C, which is the same thing as Division is multiplication by the reciprocal of the divisor. Okay, so division is multiplication by reciprocal of divisor. It is always the reciprocal of the number being divided by. Well, this is the theory behind why this always works, okay? So if we were going to look at this problem as a problem of theory with some numbers in it, we would say, okay, 4/5 divided by 2 is the same thing as 4/5 divided by 2 over 1. But I'm going to multiply by 1. I want to get it in a different form, so I'm going to multiply by 1 in the form of the reciprocal of the denominator. So that will be 1 over 2 divided by 1 over 2. And when I do that, these denominators, the fractions in the denominator, cancel out, and I'm left with the first fraction times the reciprocal of the second one. And you can see on this one that we're going to have some cancellation, 4 and 2, and we wind up with 2/5 as the answer. Okay, so now let's go up here to our problem. This is going back to our definition of a reciprocal. 5/8 times something is 1. So the something that we're going to multiply by is going to be the reciprocal of 5/8, which is 8/5. Let me get a better marker here. 8/5. And this last one on the board, 2/3 times something is 1, and that something will be its reciprocal. So 2/3 times 3/2 is 1. And you can see if we multiplied it across, it would be 6 divided by 6, which is 1. Now we'll come back in a little bit with some problems for you to work. Hello students, it's Mrs. Carla with more of Fractions 25, dividing fractions by whole numbers. So now we're going to practice what I just showed you. I'm going to do the first two for you and then with you, and then you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 by yourself. All right, so let's look. Remember, when we divide by any number, we multiply by its reciprocal. And the reciprocal of 2, remember 2 is 2 over 1. So 2 over 1, when we flip it over, becomes 1 over 2. So the reciprocal of 2 is 1/2. So we're going to change this division problem into 2/3 times, remember we can use the little dot for times, or we can use the little X. So times 1/2 is the same thing as 2/3 divided by 2. So now that we have it in multiplication, we can cancel. So we're going to cancel the 2 and the 2, leaving a 1 and a 1, and the answer is 1/3. Okay, and that really makes sense if you think about it. Now let's get 2/3. Okay, so they're upside down to you, aren't they? Okay, so we have 2/3. If I divide by 2, isn't that the same as splitting in half? So 2/3 split in half is 1/3. It makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, now let's look at the next one. We have 5/8 divided by 10. But divided by 10 is the same thing. Remember, 10 can be written as 10 over 1. So that is the same thing as 5/8 times the reciprocal of 10 is 1 over 10. Okay, Now when we look at it that way, we've got a 5 and a 10 that both have a 5 as a factor. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, 10 divided by 5 is 2, 1 times 1 is 1, 8 times 2 is 16, and the answer is 1/16. All right? So now I want you to do the other 4. So I'm going to read them for you. 5/18 divided by 3. Okay? What would be the reciprocal of 3? That's what you're going to use to multiply with, and it would be 1/3, right? So 3/8 divided by 3. 5/6 divided by 12. And 5. The last one is 5/11 divided by 2. So you're going to first rewrite each one of those as a multiplication problem, and then you're going to solve them. And I'll be back in just a moment with the answers. So now you pause your video and work those 4 problems. Beep, beep, beep. All right, now I have taken each one of these and I have written them in the correct multiplication form. So 5/18 divided by 3 is the same thing as 5/18 times 1/3. 1/3 is the reciprocal of 3. So now when I look at these, the 3 came downstairs. Now there's no way to cancel anything. So 5 is going to be on the top, and then 3 times 18, 3 times 8 is 24. Carry the 2, and I'm going to get a 54. 5/54 is the answer. Coming up here, 3/8 divided by 3 is the same as 3/8 times 1/3. 1/3 is the reciprocal of 3. So now, look, this is handy. The 3 cancels the 3 with a 1, and I end up with 1/8. Final answer. Okay, 5/6 divided by 12 is the same thing as 5/6 times 1/12. Now the 12 comes downstairs. All right, so there's nothing we can cancel, and the answer is 5/72, because 6 times 12 is 72. The last one that we're going to do under fractions 25 is 5/11 divided by 2 is the same as 5/11 times 1/2. So we're going to look at it and say, oops, there's nothing that will cancel, and we wind up with 5/22, and therefore I want you to remember that division is the same thing as multiplication by the reciprocal, and we will use that all the way through our algebras. Division is the same thing as multiplication by the reciprocal. And this is Mrs. Carla, and may God bless your day.